We're going live. Hello, everybody. We've had a little bit of a morning. We had a power cut. We're up here in the Hollywood Hills. Sounds so pretentious, doesn't it? I'm sorry. Anyway, we're up in Laurel Canyon. Very, very blessed to be up here. It's very beautiful, surrounded by trees. Lots of Europeans live up here, I think, because it reminds us of being back home. Like I grew up in a village, in a small leafy green area. I used to walk through fields to go to school, actually. Had to go all the way around in a big semicircle to my comprehensive. But anyway, so we love living up here. But in fact, actually, this isn't really just a Laurel Canyon problem. This is a Los Angeles problem. We get brownouts all the time. Like we'll be tracking and we'll get dips in power. Now, we do have a lot of backup stuff here, so it doesn't affect us too much. But there's not much you can do when there's an actual power outage. So if you lose all the power, you can have as much backup power generators as you like. I mean, we don't actually have a oil generator. That would be a little over the top. But anyway, so I apologize. That is the problem. And then we had a technical issue with we were actually using a Focusrite. Don't ask me why. It won't happen again, and it wouldn't sync. So we're back to using our good friends and very supportive people, Audient. So we have an ID14 and an ID4 chained together. And we just got the ID44 for those of you that are interested, and we're going to do a review of it and a giveaway for the ID44. So that would be rather spectacular as well. Anyway, sorry about that, little frustrated here, getting stuff going. Hello everybody, I'm just going to do the pop-out window so I can read your chats. Dum-dum-dum-dum. How is everybody today? Sorry with my tales of woe beginning here. Technology, love, hate it. Well, can't do much when it comes to electricity, can you? When the electricity's going out, no, the SSL doesn't need to be on. Actually, the SSL doesn't need to be on, and it's on. Anyway, so yes. Yeah, so thank you, Audient. Came through once again. And all is good. Technology, love, hate it. Yeah, it's just electricity. What can you do? Yes, thank you, Audient. I can ask you that. That'll be one of our questions today for the giveaway. So we're doing a giveaway of this course, which is one I did. This is an artist I work with, and Academy members, of which I can already see there's quite a few here, will know this song or know this artist. This is Katey Laurel. She's an incredible singer-songwriter we worked with. Hello there in Worcester in England. Hot in Germany. It's hot everywhere, isn't it? You're in St. Louis and the schnitzeled fizzled. Yes. SSL consumption is around. I'm not sure what you mean. You probably mean, yes, SSLs take a lot of power. Anyway, so Katey is she's one of the best sort of singer-songwriters we work with. One of the things I love about Katey, she doesn't actually know we're online here. I should have told her we were going online. Is she works super, super hard at this. Yeah, Katey, Yoni. Yeah, Laurel. Thank you. That's funny. The thing, she's super, super hard work and gets a lot of placements. She's been somebody we've been featuring quite a lot in the Academy. Oh, you're raining in London. Good. So you'll probably know. Excuse me. Now, I did this course. This is a song I produced for her. As you can see, it's there's a few plugins on this, just so you can hear. Not a lot. There's some reverb going on. I can turn everything off. Yeah, there's pretty much nothing going on. It was on the console at one stage. It is no longer on the console. So let me go to that picture. Look, I'm going to disappear over here. Hey, I'm up here. Okay, so there's not a lot going on. I do have a little bit. That's up over here is me. That's my Mutamatic and everything. But everything else, as you can see, is pretty much non-EQ'd, no compressed or whatever. There's just something going on the beat here. So we're going to go down. We're going to mix this song from scratch. This song is available. It's going to be the one we do for the giveaway. It's also, when I mixed it, I gave it to Brad Wood. and he also mixed it. So the course that you can download is me mixing it and Brad Wood. So rather special. Very, very happy. All right, well, look, let's listen to a bit of the song.
This is dangerous, but we need to feel the rush. And I keep saying I can't keep playing this game, but I keep finding myself inside of the same old same hurricane. Oh, 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 hurricane. Oh, 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 hurricane. Oh, oh, oh.
Okay, so you're probably getting what this is. This song is very 60s, very late 50s, kind of in its approach. It also has kind of a 70s feeling in areas. But essentially, I wanted to go for that classic Motown meets, to be honest, Wrecking Crew. Because like here, in this section here, listen to this section. That kind of baritone there. Now, let's go through it. The beat is pretty straightforward. What I like about this song, what did you put on the vocals? I'll show you in a bit. So what I like about this song is there's nothing about this that you couldn't do in the box. There's nothing clever about this. All these elements here are all generated, inside of a computer. And then the acoustic is just, I believe it was my Lewitt LCT 140. The vocal was done with a 940. You could do this, you can make this whole recording with one microphone, basically, and just virtual instruments. Because here's a groove, which I manipulated and created. So that groove is as simple as it sounds. So if I take off all the effects that are on it, there's a max bass, which is adding the low end. Show you here. So Waves max bass. There's an air reverb, which comes free with Pro Tools, if you're a Pro Tools user. And then there's an L1 limiter here. So all the effects off, this is what we got. Yeah, whole mix is in the box. Everything's in the box. All the elements were created in the box. Here's the piano track. So that's it. I mean, that's kind of the basis of the song. It's this. So the reason why I'm talking about this is, like, for me, when I listen to a song like this, I want to find what's the core, the core, C-O-R-E, the core of a song. So I like to stand back. A lot of this, the last streaming one we did, you'll notice we did a lot more listening than mixing. And that's really what we're doing here. We're just listening and deciding. Like, listen to this track here. There's this hooky line here, which is the strings down here. Which on its own, you listen to it and you go, oh, you know, you listen to it and you think, oh, it's a little synthetic, isn't it? I mean, I can hear that that's a sample, just a really, really, really kind of, you know, simple, obvious sample of a string. It's just, I mean, it's so simple. However, in a track, those kind of things can get lost. You know, I mean, the effect of it being a little synthetic gets lost quite quickly. Everything is virtual. These are all virtual instruments. They're all virtual instruments. So, and that's basically the reality. And then I've got a timpani print here, and these were all done. I'll show you in a second. And you see the timpani is following the chords. So it's dum da dum, you know what I mean? And then listen to this. You're getting the perspective. Yeah. So yeah, kettle drum timpani. So the timpani, if we play the timpani with the bass line, let's find the bass line. And the reason why we're going through this is we're proving a point which I think you're going to understand. So what's the point? What's the point, Warren? Why are you doing all of this? Well, and I'll keep going. Most of the mixing on this track is done for you by production. It really is. If I take off pretty much every plugin, that's a trim plugin, just turning it up. I just turning the vocal up, but I think that we need to take that off. Then all that's left is reverb. All right, so all we've got left is reverb now, and it's only on a couple of things. Here is the chorus.
I keep saying I can't keep playing this game, but I keep finding myself inside of the same old same hurricane. Oh, 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 hurricane. Oh, 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 hurricane. Oh, oh, oh.
Cool. So you're understanding my point. I think a lot of the time, and we talk about this a lot of the time there's a sort of discussion of, and it's a total emphasis. We had a discussion about this, for instance, in Nashville, when we did the panel at VK. We were talking about how essentially there's this sort of belief that mixing's going to fix everything. And Ryan Hewitt, you can watch this. I think in the Academy it's already up. If you're in the Academy, there's already the VK panel. Is that correct, any Academy members? I see there's about 20 on. Isn't that already up? And you'll hear Ryan Hewitt talk about it. He got given a song to mix by a famous songwriter, and he just said it was a total disaster of unfocusedness, and he couldn't figure out what the heck the guy was trying to do. And that's where I think we're in this sort of disconnect. These days, a lot of mixing at very high levels a lot of the pop songs that people are getting, the mixers are asking for it to be sent with all of the plugins and everything on that. Now, why is that? That's because these days we're using plugins to create the sound after the fact. So basically you can't send somebody raw tracks, because raw tracks often are DIs. Raw tracks are often, unprocessed, unfocused kind of ideas that don't make any sense until you heavily process them. So we do live in a world of where plugins are starting to matter. Thank you. I'm glad you like the coffee. Mine's delicious. Look. See what that is? Anybody know what that is? It's SPL, I believe, isn't it? Yeah. No, JPL, sorry. Did I say SPL? JPL. It's the Jet Propulsion Lab. Is any of our NASA friends watching? So what is the lesson then? Well, the lesson is like this song was produced specifically to have a sound. So when I mixed it, and then when we gave it to Brad Wood to mix for the course, it already had a roadmap. It had a roadmap of what to do. And I think that this is a double whammy because, of course, this is called Produce Like a Pro, and this is about like emphasis on not just mixing stuff, but actually producing it a way to hear it a certain way. So here's the beat. Let's go back to the beat. You can visibly see, and of course, most importantly, you can hear that the kick sound is very low. So, I don't look at things, I listen to them, but I'm using it as a reference for you. So obviously, here comes the max bass. Off. And it's just, it's adding a little bit here. It's adding about 5 or 6 dB, 5.6. There it is. And I like it. I use the R bass all the time, but the max bass is a little bit more subtle. Also, you can see here, you can high pass. You can get, but I'm boosting at 60. I can get really quite specific on it. However, as you know, in the chorus, I did add a drum print. Here it is. Here's the drum print. That is Addictive Drums. And as you can tell, it's just mirroring the drum, the timpani, and everything, and the original beats, all mirrored. Now, the beat already has some reverb on it. But heck, let's add some more. So if you can see, the most important thing is here, I've got a reverb time, it's pretty long, 8.4 seconds, room size, no pre-delay, but it's only at 25%. Hopefully you can see that okay. So the mix blend knob is pretty low. Yeah, the M bass is good, the max bass is great. And then I put an L1 over it. And this is the, see the link control here? What I like about this link control is it's linking the threshold and the output ceiling. Hopefully that's clear where you are if you're not watching it on a cell phone. So basically what is great about this link control is the volume doesn't change. Listen to it on and off. All it does is tuck down that transient. It's a very, very obvious thing to do, but is the first thing I do when I reach for an L1. Is I reach for the L1. A lot of people use the L1, the L2. It's a very popular limiter. I'm sure there's all kinds of opinions on it, but I love it, and I've been using it for years. And so what I like about it is I just go to the link. See, it never got any louder. One of the things, if I don't use the link control, like I'll just do this. Sorry if I just blew up your speakers, but you understand what happened there. So what's happening there is like I am adjusting the volume. I don't want to adjust the volume. This is like a really, really smart, simple, dumb thing. And I like smart, simple, and dumb. I think we talk about this a lot. In the world of, quote unquote, professional studios, people like compressors and EQs and stuff, which have like 2 or 3 knobs on them. One of the biggest problems I found coming up, especially in like the early 90s, when I first started recording music, late 80s, early 90s, you would go to the big box distributor stores, and you'd want a compressor, and they'd sell you something that had like, input gain, threshold, ratio, attack, release, output gain, high pass filter, blah de blah blah blah, like different selections of rebalance, auto, function, blah blah blah, and you'd end up with this unit, and you're a beginner, and you've literally got 14 knobs on it, and you're still trying to figure out what ratio means, let alone attack and release. So I like stuff like this, because this is when you want to do music and you want to be creative. I like dumb, quick, go for it, what works. So here we go. Let's watch the link control and just see how it controls that transient, see how simple it is. It controls the transient of that too loud snare. It just tucks it in, but the volume doesn't change. Watch it. Or watch me using it and listen to it. Great, and it's fast enough to deal with it. So it's giving us 2 to 3 dB with gain reduction, but only on that, and it doesn't feel like it's just folded it back in and made it go splat. It's smart, So it's a quick and easy tool. So there you go. In 2 seconds, we created the beat the way we wanted it to be. We added a little bit more low end, not too much, but a little bit more low end with the max bass, and put a little extra reverb on it to make it sound a bit bigger and washier, and then an L1. That was it. Really dumb. Now the timpani print, absolutely nothing on it. So it's following the piano. Have a listen. Good question, Mike. I wouldn't use a Transient Designer for that. A Transient Designer would be, I tend to use the Transient Designer to actually add back in transients near the end after I've got a little bit carried away with compression. Because the great thing about compression and limiting, etc., is that we can control the initial transient, we can control the sustain of the sound, we can bring in more energy, by parallel compressing or compressing heavily. All of these things are wonderful when using compressors, but then we might just lose that initial snap. So you'll find a lot of mixers, traditionally that were mixing on consoles, they loved the Transient Designer when it came out, when the SPL Transient Designer came out in the 90s, because you were able to get the big, boofy, massive snare, but then the snap was lost. The piano was, I believe, let me see what I use here. Instrument, I believe it was the Mini Grand. Yep. It was a Mini Grand. It's amazing what you can get away with the right sounds. Okay. All right. So here's the drum print, which we listened to before. And all I did and all I would do on this is literally add a bit of 60 for the kick. And I got a little bit of 3K just to bring up the snare. And this is that added to it. Yeah, Kenneth's saying Transient Designers are great for adding a little bit of attack onto snare samples. That's very true. Especially if I got snare samples that are undynamic. I always use Addictive, and I always create the MIDI, and I get all of the all all of the up and down kind of like transients, etc. But what will happen is, it still will sound a little sterile because even though it's a sample that's being triggered, it's not quite as perfect, or imperfect, I should say, as a real snare. So Transient Designer, I can shape each sample, if I want to use multiple samples on a snare drum, to do something different. All right, cool. So here is the... You think I'm a little loud compared with the music? Let me see if I can rebalance it. I'm turning me down a bit. Is that better? That sounds too quiet to me. Is that better? Give me a yes or a no. So I brought my voice down a couple of dB. Is that better? Speak to me.
I keep saying I can't keep playing this game.
It's interesting when I try to do that because, of course, sometimes then I'll get the opposite thing. It's like this is the wonderful thing about doing music is like we'll put thank you. So I'll put something up and somebody will say, Warren, that is the best song you've ever put up on YouTube. And then the next comment is, that is the worst song you've ever put up on YouTube. And that is, Jamie says the levels were fine. See, here we go. See, okay, people are saying it's better in general. All right, good. Okay, so getting back, I just want to make sure you're all happy. First of all, we should do our first giveaway. It's 11. Let's do our first giveaway. So the giveaway is for the course, which also features Brad Wood, of course. I see we have 300 people watching. Thank you ever so much. You all absolutely rock. Firstly, I see 75 likes. Would you please like and share? It'd be nice if that 75 was 300. That would be absolutely amazing if you could do that. So please like and share. So we've still got more to go through and talk about on the mix, and we'll talk about different stuff. I'm just going to move this mic. Sorry if it's loud. There you go. So Brad Wood mixed this with me. So the course also includes him doing it, and you can win that. Also, I believe Matt is doing a deal. We're doing a deal where I believe it's 40% off the course, and you're going to get this. Plus, of course, you're going to get Brad's mix as well, which is fantastic. Brad is one of my favorite engineers and producers. Check him out. So yes, please like and share. So I wanted to start by asking, because we had a technical problem, and luckily we were saved by our good friends Audient. We're using ID14 and an ID4 together to solve a problem here. So thank you, Audient, for making great products. But I want to know, what do you use? What is your preferred interface? I think that's a really, really interesting thing. I'd like to know. What do you use? Hey, Heavy Metal Mixer 91. How are you? So many great people on here. I know her. Tom C, thank you. Tom Turbo, Chris, another Chris, Scott, Dick, Tony. Thank you ever so much. You're all amazing. So please, hey, King Beasley, Gary Knight, Brett. So what is your interface of choice? Motu? ID44? Oh, Scott, you've already got one. Wow, you beat me. Ours just arrived. And we're going to review and do a giveaway. Probably not next week, the week after. This week coming up, ID14, great. Zoom, Antelope, Apollo, Behringer, Focusrite, RME 400, Steinberg, Audient, RME, Motu. Hi, Claudius. Wow. Apogees, quite a few Apogees, some UAs, Roland, Tascam, Behringer. So Studio One, more Studio One, Steinberg, Lynx, a Focusrite. Oh, Lynx. Yeah, I like the Lynx. Another Focusrite, Motu, more audience. Good to see some audience in there. We like that company. They're good, really good to us. Digi 002. I had one for years. I had a Digi 001 for a long, long time and made some pretty big records on a Digi 001. So, I think we talk about this all the time now, that the average I/O now is like leaps and bounds above what we started on the late 90s. You really can. You can get your little ID4 and make an album now. I have, and I do. Most of this song was done on a very, very simple setup. You don't need expensive equipment. Somebody left a message on the Blackbird John McBride video yesterday or the day before, whenever we put it up, and said, you don't need this big studio of all this gear. I think you do, depending on what you're doing. If you're doing a song like this, you could do this entirely in the box with one or two really nice mics, maybe one dynamic and one really good condenser. We can do this in the box because everything else is like me playing mandolins and acoustic guitars and ukuleles and bass. All of this is a DI. When we're going to get to the bass in a minute after we've done the drums, you're going to see that it is just one DI. That is it. So we didn't need a whole bunch of stuff. And I also printed a reverb on it. You're going to hear all of that. All very simple, just one input. And it worked well for the song. Bearing in mind, a lot of Motown was just a DI. It was just James Jamerson going into the console. So, but if I'm going to do a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 piece band or orchestra or acoustic instruments, you need a studio. You need a big room. You need the ability to have 24 inputs. So there is no right way or wrong way. When that person said, oh, you don't need this stuff, it's like, no, you don't need that stuff if you're doing very simple dance music, EDM, you're working on your own, you're only working with one or two people, great. But as soon as you move into a world where you've got to house multiple amounts of musicians and they're all playing together at the same time and they all need headphone mixes and you need 24 or 32 inputs, that's where studios really start to come to life. And that ability to have everything super organized, So, these are the things. And I'm just really impressed with John McBride's philosophy and the fact that he is sitting there and investing so much money in this, It's really impressive. And, like I said, I can't pronounce your name. I'm sorry. Jaal or how? Sorry. It says, if you're recording a band, you need a bigger setup. Yes, you do. And as Brett said, it's horses for courses. So for me, it's really, really important. Yeah, the DI in the 60s, Lisa, yes. So I think that this stuff is important for us to know. It's just, you hear me say it all the time. I ask that question about modern music, but, I love modern music and I love old music. I love it all. I love every genre. I grew up doing everything. I grew up on Queen and the Beatles and 80s music and 90s music and 50s and 40s and 60s and the whole schnizzle. Just mixed the whole thing together. I believe it's, there's no right way or wrong way. I think understanding all of it is really where you're going to win. If you can understand how to record a band live, whether it be a jazz band or, a metal band, or you're very welcome. Or, just doing something in your bedroom and everywhere in between. That's really the secret. That is why it's produced like a pro and it's not a genre-specific thing we do here. Okay, so we just talked about the bass. Let's go to it. See, the bass print is this. This is a DI. So I printed that DI. You can hear it. I love polka because my wife is Polish, so I've listened to polka. I also love opera. He says nobody can love opera. I absolutely love opera. Madame Butterfly. I grew up on Puccini and Verdi, and I just love it all. I'm sorry, I grew up on it. Gilbert O'Sullivan. My father, I was very blessed. My father unfortunately died recently, and it was a big deal. I only talked about it with Academy members when it happened a few months ago. Now I'm a little bit more open about it. because it was a big, big loss for me. My father was a huge classical music and jazz buff. And if it hadn't been for his love of classical and jazz, I wouldn't be doing this. You know, because growing up on that kind of music and the fact that I can read and write music and all of these things, not that you have to, it's all because I grew up surrounded by amazing music. I love country too, Lemmica. I love it all. To me, there's only good or bad music. I love it all. But you don't have to love it. Gilbert O'Sullivan. Oh, I love Gilbert O'Sullivan. My dad bought that first album when I was a kid and I grew up listening to it. Nothing Rhymed. What a masterpiece. All right. So look, that is printed with the reverb on it. Thank you, Claudius. Of course you can watch it, Kahan. You can watch it later. Oh, Vivaldi, yeah. Sorry. Thank you, everybody. I don't really talk about it much, and it's been a long time, so I even don't want to dwell on it now. I prefer to celebrate these incredible people that help us. Why print with reverb? Well, you probably came on a little later. The thing about this song is I am completely and utterly building the track. I built this track up the way I wanted to hear it. You know, I wanted this to be a song that was very reminiscent of Motown, the 50s and the 60s kind of feel, even a little bit of a 70s. So to get that, I had to commit. Thanks, Tony. I printed it with reverb because a lot of that stuff has it with the reverb on. Yeah, it's the spring reverb effects. It's better just to come in because I stop and I keep looking and I'm going, do I go and open the door? Because I can see you both from standing outside. It's just, it can always come straight. Okay, what was the reverb we used here? Let me have a look. I don't remember what the spring reverb was. Sorry about that. It was a really generic. Here it is. There it is. This is what we used. The air spring reverb. That was it. Obviously, that's at 100%. That was it. The spring reverb, obviously blended a little bit differently. And that has a low cut on it, which we don't want. But yeah, that was the spring reverb. So just the air spring reverb. Very simple, comes free with Pro Tools. I don't know what your DAWs are. We can talk about that later. And you don't have to commit to one. I just do. I wanted to sound. So for me, why do I commit? Because people are asking this, why do I commit? I commit because for me, if I'm going to build a song, I want to have a foundation. So I create this beat. Here we go, this beat here. I add a piano. I then add a bass line. And those elements start giving me a feel of a song. Then I believe the next thing that came in actually was the acoustics. And so let's go to the acoustics. Just the stereo ones, left and right. Now they're pretty dark and they're definitely compressed. You can hear how squashed they are. So in this instance, I don't think we need to do that much to them because they're already compressed on the way in. I think I would just do a little bit of carving. So let's just go for something really simple like an REQ2 and just kind of come in. Let's get it out of the way of the bass. Put this one in the middle. No reverb on the acoustics at the moment. I'm being selective about what I put reverb on. I don't want everything to be a massive wash. I'm just choosing where to put it. And I think if having it on the bass is really cool, I think I put it on everything else, it will just turn it into a really, real big mess. So I'm going up to 150 and I got a gentle slope here. That's funny. Yeah, you weren't supposed to put reverb on a bass. Well, you tell Carol Kay and Brian Wilson that. I think that's the reality, you see. There's a lot of I'm sure there's many guys and girls with channels that say stuff like that. In fact, I know there is. But then the music's all super generic. To see how much of this song has a flavor and a production right from the get-go. And by the way, if you win this course or you buy this course, you're allowed to use this in your resume. Like an actual song with a direction. You want to get clients that want to do Adele sounding tracks or want to do Amy Winehouse sounding tracks, mix this, put this into your resume so your clients know that you're capable of doing this kind of music. You're not going to get that with generic rock tracks. You're not going to get that with, it's fine, but doing generic rock stuff, having here's my, it's just not going to work for you. These are the kind of things that build your career and build your stuff. You want to do things that have unique sounds. So I like that. I might just, do a little brighter. There you go. I mean, that's not much. All I've done is a little high pass and a little top end EQ. Not using any dynamic EQs. I'm not multi-banding. I'm just doing a little tiny bit. Let's have a listen. So let's go back to our beat, let's go to our timpani, let's go to our drum pin. Now, what I did is I wanted to do the wall of sound acoustics to Phil Spector. So we got a stereo pair of acoustics. And I find that personally find, wow, that blew up, sorry about that, the pop screen. I personally find one of the problems, one of the reasons why I like Nashville, for instance, and Nashville tunings is I can keep the same voicing. So let me grab a guitar and I'll show you what I mean. Where's my acoustic? Sorry about that. Come back. Okay, so what am I talking about? So that's the sequence. Okay, so what I love about Nashville tuning is if I could just take that F major chord. If I use it on Nashville, those of you will know, because it's the 12 string, it keeps exactly the same stack. That keeps a stack of... You know what I mean? It keeps so it's literally doing the same stack of inversions. So one of the problems I find that happens is if I put a capo on and do a different voicing, which is quite possible. So what I could do is I could put a capo on the 5th fret. I can then play a C, a D, then an A minor, and then a G shape to get the C. So, So you understand what I mean? That's a solution, isn't it? However, everything is being stacked differently. You might sound like, what are you talking about, Warren? Well, all the roots and the thirds and all the inversions go upwards, differently. Oh, somebody's saying full screen. Yes, good point. Thank you ever so much. All right. So this is what I'm saying. So here's the voicings. So you got an F, a G, then an A minor, and a C. Now, if I put a capo on the 5th fret, I could do this. I could do the C, then a D, then an A minor like this, which will be an E minor shape with the bar on there, and then a G shape like this. Okay, the problem is like all of the voicings get stacked differently. So you've got 1, 3, 5, root 3, then you've got a 1, 5, root 3. That might all sound like, who cares, Warren? Well, it starts to get a little unfocused for me. So that's the reason why, personally, I like to use the 12-string technique of using the Nashville tuning, where you use the high strings, because it keeps the same stack of voicings. It works really, really well. So to get that big kind of Phil Spector thing, what he did is he had a lot of guitar players playing at the same time. I had all these guitar players playing at the same time, and they create this wall. Now, I tried that, and I have tried that, and it can be a big slop. And the thing is, when it's just me doing this on my own, which was not me on my own, my old engineer Phil was helping out, Phil Allen. Many of you at the Academy will know Phil Allen, very, very talented guy, recorded Adele, won a Grammy, etc., for doing Adele. So what I found was using other instruments, such as, you guessed it, a mandolin. So that mandolin against the acoustic gives me this. Now when I listen to it, I realize I don't need that high-end boost. So high-end boost on the acoustics I put on is going away. Why? Because the mandolin is giving me some of that. All I need to do is get rid of some of those that low end. And then, believe it or not, I've got a ukulele. So, altogether, well, ukulele and mandolin, I got this. Add in the acoustics. So it just creates that, movement together but the different instruments give it a little bit of push and pull. One of the problems for me with acoustic guitars is you can get a little bit of that sitar-ishness. Does that make sense? I just made that word up, sitar-ishness. No, that kind of pwing, 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 because it's always a high E string. What I love about things like mandolins, if those of you that have ever played a mandolin, the tension on them is phenomenal. It's like super, super. So even though it's high string, it doesn't sound thin and weedy, and they're tuned in unison. And so they have this sort of feeling of toughness. So even though they're small, high instruments, they just feel. So I decided I was going to do the acoustic, and that was a small body. That was actually a 3/4 size acoustic. So 3/4 size acoustic, put the mandolin for the high voicing, and then the ukulele as an alternative, just to kind of blend the two together. And that, again, comes down to production. So it was a production choice rather than a try to solve it with EQ choice. So again, hence produce like a pro. So let's listen to all the elements so far. So we've got piano, the drum print, and the beat and the timpani. Now, another thing The production choice was to use those acoustic guitars as a shaker. I learned that from working with Mark Ender years ago in like 2000. Mark mixed some tracks for me. In fact, he mixed a track that went on that, what was the name of the movie? Aquamarine. Anybody old enough to remember that? I think it was about 2003. And I had recorded the acoustic guitars with a 57, and it was my old 70s Yamaha, which is around here somewhere. And I recorded with a 57 using, talking about earlier, a Digi 001 on an LE system at my house, my old house in Silver Lake. So Digi 001, home setup, 57, 1970s Yamaha guitar, worth at that time about $70. And he loved it. He loved the tone. And when I doubled it and I did a higher up inversion, in those days I didn't have a second acoustic guitar for a Nashville. He took the second one and he wiped off all the low end. He boosted the high end on the other one as well, ran a de-esser on it, and created a... So the acoustic became, you guessed it, a percussion instrument that also had melody, or more importantly, harmony. So it was a harmonic percussive instrument. That is what the acoustic becomes. And that's essentially what this is here. It's giving movement to make the song move. It's just giving that movement like a shaker, but it's also giving me harmony. So, why am I saying that? I'm saying it because it doesn't need to be that loud. You can see how I've turned it down. It's just there just to fill it out a little bit and give it some movement. Again, one of the things I first noticed when I came to YouTube about 3-4 years ago is there was lots of people talking about, like, there was one video it said, make everything as loud as everything else so you can hear it all. Well, that's just not how you produce. I mean, the way you want to produce is a lot of sounds are just there, to be supportive or create movement. That's production choices. That's where I think it's really good for us to talk about production and why we're talking about this with the mix. We're breaking it down and we're understanding. Because for me, one of the most important things when you're given stuff to mix is to listen to the song and decide what you're doing rather than just going and watching a video and going, I want to boost the 60 hertz on the kick. I want to take the bass. I want to, all this kind of stuff. I wish we'd learned just to have that in the other room while we're doing this. Okay, so, next up is the Telecaster. Now, I didn't have a baritone guitar. So what did I do? I just used my Tele. And this is going through a little Fender amp with a reverb on it. But it's detuned. So all it really is this, detuning it to a C. I didn't have a baritone, so I just went down and got this C. That's all it is. I'll show you on the main camera, sorry. So just detune this to C. So. That's it. So that's now a C. So the E string dropped to a C. I didn't have a baritone guitar, but I did have a Telecaster. So it's as simple as that. You know, you make do. I wanted that classic, as somebody was talking about before, Glenn Campbell's, you know, Fender 6, all of that kind of stuff. And then that's just that, an octave up. So we're in this world here, you see. Here I've got it recorded, and it hasn't got a huge amount of compression, hasn't got a huge amount of EQ. Do we want to or not is our decision here. Do we want to add much to this? Because if you're in a place here, what happens a lot when you're mixing, and you probably notice this yourselves, is you chase your tail. And this is a big thing to talk about. It probably should have been something I talked about at the beginning. Is that if you make those first drums absolutely slammingly aggressive, okay? So if I went here and took this beat, if I went there and did this, for instance, which is what would happen if you followed a lot of, stuff out there. You'd go in and you'd go 60, wouldn't you? You go 60 and you boost the schnizzle out of it, and you go 350 and you cut it. And then you would go to like 10K, maybe boost that. You know, you do something like that. Okay, we'd all do that. That would be like, if you watched a video on EQing drums, I'm exaggerating it. Actually, I'm probably not exaggerating it, but I'm probably just doing it like this. Okay, that's what you would do. And then you'd come in with the timpani, and you'd see people go and draw like 50,000 different like boosts and cuts and all this kind of stuff. And what ends up happening is you get this massively aggressive sounding mix where everything has to be EQ'd to within an inch of its life, which in some instances is what you have to do when somebody gives you a very, very dense, very, very unfocused production. The reality is that we're all home producers, engineers, and mixers. That's why we do produce like a pro. We're encouraging people to think about how they're recording stuff, because the complaint obviously always is, whether it's on this channel or everybody else's channel, is like all the music sounds the same, everything's the same. And it's because we're not encouraging the creativity. People pay lip service to it and they say creativity, but they're not. They're not looking at like building it from the ground up, like focusing on choosing the sounds. So I'm bringing this up and I'm waffling on as I usually do to say, what do I really want to do with these electrics? Because if I hear the bass, I put in those acoustics, I put in the main piano, I put in the beat and the drum print. This is what I got. It's pretty darn close. Let's do a little bit to it. Okay, so we'll listen to it all together. So now I'm just going to create a quick stereo auxiliary here. Going to call it W as in Warren, guitar, and I'm just going to do some gentle stuff. So let's go in there and get a little bit, you know what, first thing I'm going to do is boost a little bit of high end. We're going to have some fun. Why don't we do, because we've got some fun new plugins that we've all been trying out, why don't we do a bit of everything? So I'm going to take our new rather lovely Brainworks 4000 here. I'm going to go in, I don't need anything below about 120. Listen to how that, about 150 high passing. I think a gentle amount of compression will help that reverb breathe more. So let's bring in a little compression. This is where SSLs always win for me, because I'm bringing in the compression, but as you can tell, the output remains constant. Now for me, the only issue is like, I like what it's doing to the high end, but it might be a little bit too much for me. So I'm going to do two things. I'm going to actually boost the high end, believe it or not. I'm also going to boost a little bit of 200, just a shade. Just to get the Okay, but this is what I'm going to do. Now I'm just going to go and get something really generic. You guessed it, or maybe you didn't guess it, but you will in a second. I'm now going to use a de-esser, and I'm going to use the... Okay, so why did I do that? I use it just to tame those transients, because the transients are not so much the volume of the transients, it's the fact that the transients are all high end. So listen to what with it. Now without it. Put it in the track. You see what it's doing is it's just controlling excessive amount of high end. So if I just put all those things in there, you're going to really appreciate how it's just controlling it. So now I feel like I can bring them up because they're more controlled. So just increase the input gain, so actually now it's hitting the channel a little harder, so it's compressing a bit more. Going to bring down the left-hand one. There you go. Just simple, logical stuff. Okay, I did a little tiny bit of lows at 200. I rolled everything off below 115. Don't need it. High passed it. Put in some gentle amounts of compression. A bit of high boost to brighten the overall sound of it. But then used a de-esser to control where it got a little bit too aggressive. It's just simple kind of moves here. I think that the de-esser, of course, is just a variable multiband compressor that you can get in there. I usually go with the stock setting because that's the most offensive area. Most de-essers are set up initially to be super offensive. If you want to get in there and start finding that little extra kind of area, then please do. But yeah. The hair is here. Hair today, gone tomorrow. Eric the Hair has arrived. Okay. All right, so let's get on with another giveaway. Please, if you haven't already, please like and share. That would be absolutely amazing. We're just talking some general little tips here. I see that there's 300 watching. Thank you ever so much. Please like and share. I see we have 182 likes. If you could like and share it, that'd be absolutely amazing. I do use the expander from time to time, and I was messing with there for a second before I was talking about it to see if there was going to be a reason for it, but I didn't seem to be a problem for me. The stream. Let's have a look. Down, 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 down. Anyway, so let us talk about. It says, "Are you enjoying YouTube? A tap star rating on the app." There you go. Just reviewed it. Okay. Yes, please like and share. Oh, we have 6 haters already. It's quite all right. It's quite all right. We're very blessed. Thank you, everybody that's liking and sharing. I really appreciate it. Okay, so what we're going to talk about. Yeah, I do agree. A Telecaster is a pretty essential guitar. I love having one. Having one handily. So we're talking here about, about how the production really influences and how there's a lot of talk about, mixing, but unfortunately, it's not your job as a mixer necessarily to like recreate the production and try, and you need to put that energy in at the beginning. Hey, Ash. I love. There's a lot of really, really good. This is all. There's lots of different DSs that can do wonderful jobs, and they're really, really a great tool. Okay, so I want to know a little bit more about you. Now, we talked about what I/O you use, and we talked about the fact that it, there was a lot of Audient users, there was a few RMEs, some Focusrites, a lot of, we're all using a lot of the same stuff, which is wonderful. And remembering that this can be done with a very limited amount of equipment. I want to know a bit more about the audience as ever. You have several Telecasters and they're really good. Les Paul standards. Thank you, everybody that's liking and sharing. Dislikes come from the anti-high passing league. Oh yeah, the don't high pass. Yeah, okay, we're going to stay off that. Sorry if you had to refresh to get this going. Pre-Sonos 192 mobile. I don't know that. I used the wrong switch. What was the wrong switch I used? I wish I knew. Okay. So let's talk about, let's talk a little bit more. So we talked about the IOs that everybody has. I think I've asked this before, but I do want to know, what is your DAW of choice? What is your DAW of choice? I can never ask this question too much because I want to get a feel for everybody uses. At the moment, we're working on an album, and Max over there is using Ableton, and he's building tracks and programming in Ableton, and then we're importing that into Pro Tools, and it works really, really well. It does. He can get very creative. He's taking sounds and he's manipulating them. He's playing guitars and he's creating new sounds from them. I mean, Ableton is fantastic for that. I was working with Salam Remy last year, and Salam was starting to use Ableton as well and getting very, very similar results. So, videos unavailable. Oh, I'm going back. I'm scrolling back. So Pro Tools, Reaper, Cubase, more Pro Tools, Ableton Live, Reaper, Studio One, Pro Tools, Studio One, FL Studio, Logic, Cubase, Studio One, Pro Tools, Cubase, Pro Tools, Ableton, Samplitude since 2003, Studio One, Cubase, Pro Tools, Digital Performer, Cubase, Ableton Reaper, Cakewalk. Does DAW selection even matter? No. If you know how to use your DAW really, really well, that's great. I think there's probably some limitations in working in like GarageBand, and some of the kind of free apps probably have limitations, but everybody I know who's talented uses whatever they have and creates great music. Pro Tools. Oh, a Pro Tools winner won this time. So Julian Cabello, congratulations. That was to win the Brad Wood and my course of this mix here. Of course, you can get this, and I highly recommend it. You can get this at a 40% discount. What's great about this course is it's unlike most of the generic kind of courses out there. It's going to give you something very different for your resume. All of these things are cleared for you to use in your resume so you can build a client base. Okay, so let's keep going. Let us keep going. There's another Telecaster here. Let's have a listen. So let's try this. Let's try folding it in. Let's fold it in and see how it feels. Simple as that. Feels great. You're welcome, Julian. Julian, congratulations. Okay, vocal print. Let's have a listen to the vocal. That was it. That was as simple as that. All the EQ, all the compression, everything matched when I did that. It sounded good. I didn't even look.
I keep saying I can't keep playing this game, but I keep finding myself inside of the same old same hurricane. Oh, 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 hurricane. Oh, 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 hurricane. Oh, 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 oh. I keep saying I.
That's fine, Chase. Download the tracks and mix it the way you want to hear it. The way we were doing it is we were going for that classic Motown, like through the console kind of sound, or super, super clean. I've worked with a lot of those players. I remember when I not first moved to LA, but I'd only been here about 3 or 4 years. So it was late 90s. I worked at a production company in the CNN building on Sunset, for those of you that know LA. And I did an album which is very much in this vein, and we were doing everything on ADATs in those days. This was I think we started going into Pro Tools just before I left, but late 90s, and it was done on ADATs, and we had, I'm blanking on his name, really, really famous guitar player, Elvis's guitar player, played the Paisley Telly. Come on, somebody, get it before I can look it up on Google. Elvis... guitar player. I'm looking up on Google, and Paisley, Telly. Anybody going to beat me? Anybody going to beat me before I get it? Blah, 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 blah. Ricky Nelson, Elvis guitar player, James Burton. Okay, so I was working with James Burton, who made a lot of these records and played on a lot of this stuff. So James Burton was the guitar player, and so played on a lot of these records with this kind of stuff, and he made me take our little Fender amp, and Richard Burton, Gary Burton, made me take the Fender amp and turn it down to about 1. It was on 1. It was a Deluxe 65, and it was on 1. So there was zero, nada, nicked, no drive whatsoever. Now, I grew up, with the idea, and I still firmly believe this, that you set your amp to a crunch, and then you play softer, and you get that little distortion and edge in there without it. However, for him, he said to me, that's too dirty. James Burton recently died. Oh, no, you're talking about Scotty Moore. Yeah, exactly. Burton's on Ricky Nelson's Mary Lou. He had the cleanest guitar sound I've ever and he played on a lot of those records. So I have experience on this, all right, by Laureanus. But so basically what I would suggest is, you go super, super clean. If you're mixing this song and you want to grit it up a little bit, that's great. But for me, it changes the balance of the production. But by all means, I think if you want to reshape the production and the way it's done, then I would totally do it. Okay, so.
And I keep saying I can't keep playing this game.
So what we got going on here is a print of the vocal.
And I keep saying I can't keep playing this game, but I keep finding myself inside of the same old same hurricane. Oh, 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 hurricane. Oh.
Now, with all that processing on it, it was printed through. It's pretty edgy. There's a bit of grit to it. It sounds a little messy. But I kind of like it.
And I keep saying I can't keep playing this game.
It feels like it's got a little bit of essiness to it. So I could go in here and I could take and put a big de-esser on it.
And I keep saying I can't keep playing this game, but I keep finding myself inside of the same old same.
That immediately helped me out. What's quite interesting sometimes with the de-essing situation is when you're listening to a vocal you think is too bright, it might just be the S's and the T's. That all you need is just one or two kind of like and you'll I just smacked the mic. You'll get turned off. You know what I mean? If I take this de-esser off, listen.
And I keep saying I can't keep playing this game.
And just that occasional is killing me.
And I keep saying I can't keep playing this game, but I keep finding myself inside of the same old same hurricane.
You know what, Mark? That's just the one I went for. I actually use the stock one all the time as well.
And I keep saying I can't.
It's not too much SPL going into the mic. What it is I'm sorry if you didn't understand. This is a processed, like super heavily compressed. It's what we did. I went for it because I wanted to be super saturated and tape sounding.
And I keep saying I can't keep playing this game, but I keep finding myself inside of this.
Now, this was always recorded specifically with the idea of slapping it around with verb. So let's whack the verb on.
And I keep saying I can't keep playing this.
Now, there's a couple of things. Let's put on just a frequency analyzer because we're gonna do something obvious because everybody's pointing out something which is quite obvious, but I want everybody to hear it. So let's just go for a good old-fashioned. Do we have the PAS frequency analyzer? What there? I'm on a different version of. We don't. You know what? Let's do something fun. Let's go to sound theory and open up the Golfos. Congratulations on having the same birthday. Oh, Wheel of Death. Here we go.
And I keep saying I can't keep playing this game, but I keep finding myself inside of the same old same hurricane. Oh, 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 hurricane. Oh.
So what did I do? I went to 3. Let's go a little higher. Let's go up to like 6-ish. And I went down here at about 150. I focused my Golfos there.
And I keep saying I can't keep playing this game.
It's not so much singing through the nose, it's each individual has a different sound. Now she has a little 6, 700, 4, 6, and 700.
And I keep saying I can't keep playing this game, but I keep finding myself inside of the same.
So see what's happening. There's an area around about 300, area about 400, area about 600 and 700.
And I keep saying I can't keep playing this game, but I keep finding myself inside of the same old same hurricane. Oh, 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 hurricane. Oh.
I'm going to really exaggerate that tame.
And I keep saying I can't keep playing this game.
Exactly, as Lisa points out, it comes down to like, what does it sound like in a track? So we're taming it.
And I keep saying I can't keep playing this game, but I keep finding myself inside of the same.
Let's try in the track. Let's put some reverb on it.
And I keep saying I can't keep playing this game, but I keep finding myself inside of the same old same hurricane. Oh, 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 hurricane. Oh, and I keep saying I can't keep.
Dentman, and that's really just comes down to what you consider to sound good or bad, because sometimes some of the best vocals we've heard are literally somebody singing 6 foot away from a microphone with absolutely no EQ, no compression at all. Like I never record with EQ. So sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's super like distorted. Sometimes it's slightly distorted. What I was trying to do here was get a characteristic of something that was a bit trashed out. Because I wanted it to sound, you know, I wanted it to sound a little older. Yeah, exactly, as David's saying. I mean, anything works. And what's interesting, I don't know, has anybody here heard A Night at the Opera, the 5-1 mix? When they mixed it again in 5-1, they took out all of the mid-range out of Freddie's voice. So they make him sound, is this the real life? It's like super, super breathy. And the problem is, and here's the reality, is it doesn't sound like Freddie anymore to me. So you've got to sort of like, you've got to kind of balance that. Do you want to remove a characteristic of somebody's voice so much? You know, with Katey, she has a little bit of, I keep saying, a little bit of this. You know, if I was to take out all of that, it's going to end up not sounding like her anymore. So you've got to get that balance where you want the inherent characteristic of a singer, without it going crazy. Yes, Kenny, check out the 5-1 if you can of Bohemian Rhapsody. It's pretty amazing, but it's also a little scary because they have gone out of their way to sort of EQ it differently, and it is very, very strange. Yeah, it's finding that balance between taming a characteristic, you know, and enhancing what you do like and removing what you don't like without removing the characteristic of the vocalist. Now, thank you, Andrew. I have a double of this.
And I keep saying I can't keep playing this game.
And not only is that a double, it's printed with an Echoplex. It's printed with an Echoplex delay on it. So the two things together.
And I keep saying I can't keep playing this game, but I keep finding myself inside of the same old same hurricane. Hurricane.
Now, if you get this course, I believe we have the unprocessed print as well, so you can do whatever the heck you like with it. Yeah, Lemmica, it's a tough one. I'm a huge Queen fan, and you know, to remix it in 5/1 was really exciting to hear it. But of course, the problem is you're exactly right. When you have something which is so, you're going to get chorusing because it's two vocals. Hence chorus. So it's not a problem. That's just an effect that will happen. When you've got an album like that, which is so incredible, and they've done so much production work, it's, you know what I mean? It's very difficult to try and do it. I think, I don't know if I would try, but, you know, hats off to them for doing it. I know, Alexi. I agree. I have heard the Genesis stuff, and yes, it's amazing. I almost feel that there are certain bands that lend themselves to that because they were also making albums in quad, like Tubular Bells in 5/1. Have they done that yet? Because we used to have the quad of that. Incredible. Well, it's true, Paul. I mean, you know, that's always going to be. Yes, a ribbon would work really well. Great idea. I agree. I think that's very true. I think with the excessive use of auto-tune and Melodyne, I have no problem with using it to correct something. I don't have a problem, and I will go to bat on this because we've always done it. We used to slow down the tape to hit the high note. We used to sample in a word in a primitive sampler in the 80s and tune it and drop it back in. We've always done things. You know, back in the 70s, they would slow down stuff so Dave Gilmour could get the high notes. They slowed it down or sped it up for the Beatles. People have always done things to make the vocal right. And when you think about it, speeding up a vocal on tape is going to make it sound more like a chipmunk, let alone what Melodyne or Auto-Tune can do. So we've always used those tools. There's nothing wrong with a tool. It's just where it becomes excessive. And as probably to Paul's point, and a lot of people are talking about, is when it's done so heavily, it ends up taking the characteristic out of, you know, of the person, so it ends up with like almost no personality. That's where we have to be careful. But with a guy like me, I'm such an average singer. I do end up leaning quite heavily on auto-tune sometimes because I'm just not that good, and I'm just do it just to sort of like you know, just to kind of like help you out so you can hear me sing a song and you know, test out microphones and stuff like that. I do fix myself because I'm just not that good. I mean, her characteristic could be. We only tamed it slightly there. So speaking of work, that's heavily manipulated to give this effect. So let's listen to that against her lead vocal.
And I keep saying I can't keep playing this game, but I keep finding myself inside of the same old same hurricane.
Now, thanks, John. I mean, I am singing. I'm just, you know, like I said, for me, it's like if I have to, now it's me and Phil. There's two of us, my old engineer. You know, if I have to correct myself, I have to correct myself because I'm not a lead singer. And it's okay, you know. I don't mind using the tools, you know, to correct little issues because that's what it is.
And I keep saying
Thank you, James.
And I keep saying saying I can't keep playing this game, but I keep.
No, those are sung harmonies. Those are definitely sung. Here we go.
And I keep saying I can't keep playing this game, but I keep finding myself inside of the same old same hurricane.
See, when I hear that little grit and distortion on our vocal, I like it. I like it because when you go back and you listen to like some of these early recordings, you know, they blew out the microphones every now and then. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it. So let's do our last giveaway. We're almost there on the song.
And I keep saying I can't keep playing this game, but I keep finding myself inside of the same old same hurricane. Oh, 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 hurricane. Oh, 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 hurricane. Oh, oh, oh.
Wonderful. Okay, so let's do our last giveaway. We found out what DAWs you're using, which is fantastic. We found out the IOs. This is for last giveaway for the course. You can get this course. It's Brad Wood mixed it as well. I obviously produced it and engineered and mixed it along with Phil Allen. Those of you who don't know Phil, he recorded Someone Like You by Adele. So having his talent in here was pretty amazing. This song is very reminiscent of an Adele / Amy Winehouse kind of production. So if you don't have a course, get it because it's great to have in your resume. You know, for me, these are the kind of things that I play artists when I try to get them interested in working with me because it shows a whole different level of kind of production outside of just the obvious kind of like rock and pop production that we all do. Too many cigarettes? Oh, sorry, I missed it. I don't smoke, but I'm probably missing that. Okay, so what do I want to know about you? We know about your IOs, which is fantastic to hear. We know what DAWs you're using. I always like finding out other stuff. I know that many of you are musicians. All right, this is a simple yes or no answer, but it could also be an answer that tells us a little bit more. Katey's from your hometown. What mics they blow up? Well, in those days, I mean, they blew everything. C12s, 251s, U47s. I mean, some of that distortion is just amazing when it's hitting the mic either too hard or the mic pre or the tape. You know, do we smoke? I don't smoke. Yeah, well, Elton John is a whole different level of talent. You know, I've never worked with Elton. I worked with Steven Tyler. There's no way he would use it live. I didn't tune a single note on Music from Another Dimension. And he self-comps. Do you see that photo I put up? Hey, if anybody goes to the community page on YouTube, I don't know how you get to it easily. Let me have a look. You see that? Okay, hold on a second. Just because we're talking about real singers. Please go and... See that? That's me comping with Steven Tyler. And we barely had to do anything because when he sang, he would self-comp. And that's quite unique when you're talking about really amazing singers. So what he would do is we'd be tracking and he'd be like, da-do-do-do-da, and he'd be like, stop. He goes, I need to go back and get that line. And we'd punch in for that line. He'd keep singing and then he'd stop and go, let me punch in that one. I mean, he's got 40 plus years of singing and making great albums and singing live. So that's a whole different level. But that's on the community page. If you haven't checked that out, please go and look at the community page. So we have 300 people watching. Thank you ever so much. You all rock. If you could like and share, that would be amazing. We have 243 likes. That is absolutely amazing. You are all super, as they say. All right. So what do I want to know? I want to know this. Are you singers? Who here sings? Who here is also a singer? Because I think a lot of people, we're moving into this world because we're artists. We're artists that want to learn how to produce and engineer and mix. That's what I was. I was a guitar player and a songwriter, and I just wanted to learn how to produce and engineer and mix. That's how I'm here. I'm here by doing that. I started with 2 cassette players. I went to 4-track cassette. I went to ADATs. I had an MSR 24-track, 1-inch 24-track machine. And that's how I'm here. I'm here because I just recorded bands and recorded myself. You know, that's... So singers, yes, says tone deaf. Bathroom singer, that's fine. I like knowing this stuff. I'm grabbing a pick. At least I am if I can get to it. I'm grabbing a pick. I'm also grabbing a guitar. So there's lots of singers. Joey's a singer. David Yao one. Congratulations, David. So, LL16. I think this is fast becoming like the industry standard, really good, affordable acoustic guitar. I know so many of my friends have these. Oh, you noticed that? I'm gonna get it. Do 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 do. Here it is, the Brian May guitar. Did you not see my video yesterday with the Flex? The Lewitt 441 Flex. So, Matt, would you put up this course that we just went through? Now the course, and there's a 40% off on it. What is great? No, the RevStar is still here, still using that. We have a lot of great guitars. We're very blessed. This is my new favorite. It's 50-50 between this and the RevStar. But yeah, if you watched yesterday's video, oh, you have a lefty Brian May Red Special. There it is. So it's 40% off. So what you're going to see is a really in-depth version of this. Plus, you've got Brad Wood mixing it as well. So there's 2. They cloned me for the video. There's 2 different mix breakdowns. So if you didn't get to win it, download the course. It's absolutely phenomenal. The reason why I'm pushing this one. Why am I pushing this one? I'm pushing this one because it's very different from a lot of the generic kind of stuff out there for mixing. And when you're working with girl singers, if you're a producer, an engineer, or a mixer, if you're working with girl singers, they want to be different. So they want to hear things that are more like Amy Winehouse and Adele and stuff that has a little bit of an edgy kind of thing that isn't quite so predictable. As producers and engineers, we get a little bit caught up in pop music, in like trying to do everything that sounds exactly like the charts. And that's great, but artists want individuality. There was a lot of discussion, you were talking about it earlier, all of you were, about how everything sounds the same. Well, artists want to be different. They want people to bring out something unusual in them. I love the 0 fret. I think it's genius. What a great idea. Why doesn't more people do that? The thing about the 0 fret, the open string and the fretted string sound the same. Out of tune. So. See how... See how that works? Yeah, I love the idea of the 0 fret because the open string... I actually thought that the Eddie Van Halen guitar took a lot from this guitar. It's sort of a similar kind of scale length. I think his is slightly longer, but the neck profile. I have an Eddie Van Halen guitar as well that Eddie gave me, and between that they have very similar. I wonder, you know, with Eddie whether he played Brian's and was like, I've got to design my own, which is okay, you know. It's fat, but it's not too fat. It's just good for... It's designed for kind of... It's really good for bending. Thank you, Scott. Anyway, love it. Thank you ever so much, everybody that tuned in today. It's really wonderful. I'm just going to hang this back up. So as PJ said, I'm a pusher. I would highly recommend whatever you do. The thing about the course that I love is like it's a little bit on the left to center side. It provides a different kind of thing. And just as a career thing, when you're working with different artists, it's great to do kind of like super generic pop. I usually use 10 to 52s on most of my guitars. So that's great. And everybody's trying to go hit it out of the park and try and do like teenage pop music. I get so many girls and guys come to me who send me in tracks that's just so overly produced and trying to sound like current pop music. And they all come to me because they want this kind of production. They want to hear their... They want to hear something that's unusual, something that has a feeling that captures a mood, not just kind of rises and stuff like that. Now, don't get me wrong, I do that too. There's plenty of things that I do, and you see it with the Little Empire stuff where I blend band stuff together with EDM stuff. I love it. We're doing a competition at the moment, which just finished today, with the wonderful guys over at In The Mix. There's so much great stuff that we're doing. There's somebody, yeah, the DC amp. Well, keep your eyes peeled and stay tuned. So, but for me, if you want to work with artists and you want to work with a lot of them, you need to be able to, you know, come from a perspective of, you know, uniqueness, not just doing generic stuff. Something that, you know, and to me, like just being a mixer these days is not enough. Just being a producer is not enough. As you can see, I'm a musician, a songwriter, a producer, an engineer, a mixer. To me, it's a great opportunity where you've got all of this ability with DAWs and everything to be able to like stretch yourself in so many different ways. And let's be honest, if you love music, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you do this? Why wouldn't you like grow as a guitar player, a bass player, a drummer, a piano player, a songwriter, a producer, an engineer, a mixer? Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you like work 12 or 15 hours a day doing something you love? That is what it's about. It's taken me a long time to get to this position, you know, but it's worth it. It's worth it. It really is. Everybody, you all absolutely rock. I see we have nearly 300 people watching. We have 255 likes. If you haven't yet, please like, and if you can, share it. It means so much to me. Thank you ever so much, everyone. It's been really, really wonderful. Congratulations to everybody that won the course. If you want to get the course, I highly recommend it because it's great for building a resume. If you're in your local area and you can play music that's a little left of center, somebody says to you, do you ever work with artists and do stuff like Adele? Play them this. You know? And to be honest, I'm all about like trying to help you guys out. If you want to take this as an instrumental and try a different girl singer on it, send it to me. Let me hear it. These are your tracks to do with. I'm sure Katey would appreciate all of the stuff you can. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Alexi. Thank you, PJ. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Yowel. I don't want to mess up your name. Kenny, Claudius. Claudius. There's so many wonderful people. I don't want to forget anybody out. John, everybody, Not Hardly, Lemmica, you all absolutely rock. Thank you ever so much. Sebastian, Seymour, Adam, you all absolutely rock. Thank you. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing. Smoky Orange County. Oh, is it bad down there at the moment? And please check out the course. Remember, it's 40% off. Okay. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing, and I'll speak to you all again very soon. Thank you. Please like and share.